Hi.
Lovely. How are you?
Doing good.
All right. Gonna make sure my phone's off. It is. Lovely. All right. So as per usual, we will proceed. We record these for our YouTube watchers. So if I'm talking like I'm talking to more people than just the two of you, that's why. That can feel a little awkward sometimes, but that's what that's about. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, okay, cool. All right, let's get started. So welcome to Urban Oracle. Welcome to our monthly, or mostly monthly, Sabbath celebration. Today we're celebrating the Lughnasadh Sabbath, also known as Lammas. And we're going to start off with Katie is going to share with us about the history. After that, we'll talk about other ways to celebrate the Lughnasadh Sabbath. And then we're going to wrap it all up with a self-gratitude harvest exercise that I will guide you through. So feel free to take notes, feel free to ask questions, and let's just have some fun with it. So take it away, Katie.
Thank you, Neen. So Lughnasadh is a harvest festival. It is marking the end of the period of summer growth and the beginning of the autumn harvest. Lughnasadh celebrates the fruition of the year's work with weaning of calves and lambs, the ripening of corn and the first apples. Historically, Lughnasadh was a 4-week festival. The last 2 weeks of July and the first 2 weeks of August, roughly corresponding to when the sun is in Leo, the astrological sign that belongs to the sun and epitomizes its power. In modern Irish Gaelic, the month of August is Lughnasadh. However, the modern Wiccan Sabbat of Lughnasadh is almost always devoted solely to the eve of July 31st, leading into Lughnasadh Day on August 1st. Lughnasadh is named after the pan-Celtic god Lugh, an essential member of the Tuatha De Danann, which is the pantheon of Gaelic Ireland gods. He is the lord of the sun, light, victory, craftsmanship, and war. In Irish mythology, there are different interpretations of why Lugh is honored. The first describes that due to him being a sun god, this time of year represents his death when the bright days begin to shorten, moving away from the summer solstice. Before he dies, he infuses the crops with his power and thus sacrifices himself so that others will be plenty with food. This legend is also tied to the legend of John Barleycorn, which is another iteration of the Green Man. Others believe that the festival originated with Lugh himself when he held a funeral feast and kind of like a sporting competition to honor his foster mother, Taltu. She had died from exhaustion after clearing the plains of Ireland so that the people could grow crops. Lugh was also a really great warrior, and many pagan groups celebrate this holiday with competitive games, harvest-related festivals, things like that. Wiccans and other pagans who follow Celtic traditions may focus their celebrations on giving thanks for their skills and talents and the grain harvest, but the emphasis is on gratitude. Grain is a large part of this Sabbath. It has held a place of importance in civilization all the way back to nearly the beginning of time. Grain became associated with the cycle of death and rebirth. In early Ireland, it was a bad idea to harvest your grain any time before Lughnasadh. It meant that the previous year's harvest had run out early, and that was a big failure in the agricultural communities. However, on August 1st, the first sheaves of grain were cut by the farmer. By nightfall, his wife made the first loaves of bread of the season. The tradition of eating and sharing the first grains of the season that started with Lughnasadh eventually spread to other areas as similar festivals. In England, it transformed into the medieval festival known as Lammas Day. In keeping with the Lughnasadh tradition, the first grains were offered to the gods, or in this case, the local church, in the form of a baked bread loaf. The loaf was blessed and then broken into 4 pieces, with one part placed in each corner of the home for good fortune and protected the stored and harvested grains. So, because of the similar timing and tradition, Lammas is often associated with Lughnasadh, but it has really different origins. So, all in all, Lughnasadh is a time of gratitude. It's a time of abundance, and it's for really recognizing the manifestations of our intentions that have kind of unfolded so far during the year.
Awesome. Thank you, Miss Katie. Thanks so much for showing up and giving us a history lesson in Lughnasadh and Lammas. So grateful. Katie isn't going to be able to stay with us the entire time, so just whenever you need to bounce is totally fine. But thank you so much for showing up and sharing with us today. Okay, so oftentimes people will be inspired to revisit and revamp their altars during this time of year, during all of the Sabbats. People tend to take their altar down and replenish it so that it's Sabbat appropriate. So we're going to talk a little bit about some appropriate altar items for this time of year. So things that color schemes that you can use for your altar during the Lughnasadh Sabbat is anything that is gold or green or sun colors. People often will place a cornucopia on their altars with corn or ears of corn. Any and all vegetables work well, especially ones that are ripe during this season. Bread and grains, obviously, like Katie mentioned, this is a harvest festival. Sunflowers, calendula flowers, yellow, orange, red, and brown candles. The 8 of Pentacles and the 10 of Pentacles, if you own a tarot deck, or any other card that represents harvest in a tarot deck. Cards that represent harvest, abundance, and gratitude. All of those are appropriate. For crystals, if you keep crystals on your altar or if you work with crystals as it pertains to the season, golden topaz is a wonderful stone for this particular festival and season. Citrine is another one. Pyrite, tiger's eye, obsidian, and moss agate. Those are all great crystals to use during the season. Other things to incorporate, and we mentioned a few, but mint is great. Sunflower seeds, meadowsweet, and calendula. Calendula is just awesome for making herbal teas, to give as offerings, for skincare, digestive care. Calendula has so many purposes and uses, both as offerings and for medicinal value and beauty too. Like, it's just a great flower. Love the uses. Other ways that you can celebrate Lughnasadh is to make popcorn garlands, which is really fun. Corn is very prevalent in the Lughnasadh season and festival. And so a fun thing you can do with the kids and as a family is to make popcorn garlands to decorate the home or to decorate an outdoor picnic area. where the family can get together and celebrate. One could make a grain mother or a corn doll. And essentially, it's like making a little dolly out of grain or from corn, an ear of corn. And typically, people will dress up these grain mothers or corn dolls with little jackets or little dresses, things like that. Hand fasting is really big during the Lughnasadh season, during this particular Sabbath. So for hand fasting couples, oftentimes they'll create 2 grain dolls or 2 corn dolls for the bride and the groom. And these become a seasonal anniversary celebration item that they'll pull out and they'll put on their altar or on their hearth or somewhere in their home and kitchen to celebrate that season when they were first originally hand fasted together, which is really cute. This is a perfect season for canning your veggies, eating bilberries and blueberries. I don't even know what a bilberry is. I've never had one. But apparently people eat them at this time of year. Blueberries, I got that covered. Performing a gratitude ritual for this first harvest. Performing any rituals to honor the seeds that you have grown, as Katie mentioned. Giving to or feeding the homeless is a really well way to spend this particular Sabbath. Meditating to connect with Lu, that, like Katie was saying, that god of craftsmanship, that he's also the Celtic Sun King, he's a warrior deity, god of light, he's got many titles. So to meditate with Lu, it's a ritual where you sit in meditation, ideally under the shade of a tree on a sunny day. I personally am not one to ever advocate or recommend doing any spirit work in direct sunlight. I was taught that that's never a good idea, but that hasn't always been that isn't everyone's experience, but all of my teachers happen to say, don't perform spirit work in direct sun. So yeah, I would say sunny day, find a shaded tree, and you can meditate with the god Lu. So you could make an offering to him through using those gold and yellow, those sun colors. It could be grains, anything particular to his craftsmanship or his luminosity. Like if you are a hand carver, you could carve him like a little wooden trinket or something. Like there's so many options, as long as it makes sense. Gratitude is also a wonderful offering, and it's widely accepted as very appropriate currency when connecting with spirit. So if your offering is gratitude, don't feel like that's not enough, because it is. So gratitude is also an offering that you can make to the deity Lu. But you can ask to connect with Lu's energy. You can ask Lu to share a message with you. You can ask him to share his skills on a specific area that you need help with. Or you can bring forward any other question that's specific to you or that makes sense to you at the time. And then after you ask, just really bask in Lu's energy, aka the sun's energy, until you feel complete. Offer up your gratitude and close your meditation with a few deep breaths, really low in your belly, sending your breath as low into the belly as you can. Other ways that you can celebrate Lughnasadh is to take an opportunity to take a page out of Lu's craftsmanship book and to celebrate your own skills and abilities. You know, what are the things that you're really remarkable at, or that are talents that are unique unto you? You can also explore what you're harvesting in your own life at this particular time. And one of the ways you can do that is with an Oracle Tarot spread. And I've actually made one for you specific to this holiday. So I'm going to share my screen real quick so I can show you. If you like, you can take a screenshot of this so you have it. Or you can just make a journal note about what each particular card signifies. So are we able to see this? Chelsea, can you see this?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. Just checking. Okay, so yeah, So for this particular spread, you can use oracle cards or a tarot deck, but you're going to draw 4 cards. And the first card that you pull is going to represent what am I harvesting right now in my life at present. That second card will represent what are the roots of my harvest. In other words, what happened to make this harvest possible, internally or externally. Your third card is going to depict how do I step into the energy of gratitude surrounding this thing that you're harvesting. And your last card is going to be how do I continue to create abundance in my life. I'm going to stop swiveling my little cursor over the picture in case you haven't taken a screenshot yet. So I'll give you a second or two to do that, and then we'll continue. Are we good for me to move on from the screen?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Yep. Okay, cool. All right. Another thing you can do is to support your local farmers during this time. Those vegetables you choose to can, or those bilberry or blueberries you wish to eat, get them from a local farmer. Is a great way to celebrate. And as Katie mentioned, how Lammas is also sharing this season of Lughnasadh, Lughnasadh still being a grain harvest, but Lammas is really being all about breaking bread and the loaf of bread, all of that. Baking a loaf of bread is a great thing to do during this season. And couples that are wed during this season or handfast during this season often will bake their wedding rings into a loaf, and they slice into the loaf to retrieve the rings, and then they divvy out the remaining bits of the bread to all the guests who are paying witness and who are in attendance. Does anybody want to share how they celebrate Lammas or Lughnasadh?
I've made the corn dollies in the past. It was a fun little activity that I did with my niece and my nephew. With corn husks and twine. We didn't really dress them up because they kind of lost interest, but we made them.
They're not nearby, are they?
No, they're not. They're not nearby.
Okay, all right, fair. I don't think I've actually celebrated this particular Sabbath. I think I missed it last year, and celebrating the Sabbats is fairly new to me. I've only been celebrating them for about a year and a half, and I definitely have my favorites that really resonate with me, and others I'm like it's a lot like some of the other ones, which you will come to find the more you learn about them. There's all of the Sabbats have so much to do with around celebrating the aspects that allowed people to survive, which was typically crops and livestock and shelter, and all the deities or entities or spirits that were responsible for making those 3 things happen and or possible. So there's a lot of reference to fire and cattle and grains and in flowers like through all of the Sabbats. So it's really about identifying with really the Sabbats that resonate for you, because times are very different now. We take a lot for granted, and we're not in such a hungry state of survival, such a intense state of survival as we once used to be, where really being in reverence and gratitude for all that is given to you was such an important thing, because it was so in your face in older and ancient times. So to practice these and to be reminded of giving gratitude and giving reverence is such a beautiful thing to reintroduce into your life if you haven't already. So yeah, but at the end of the day, it's really about, does this particular season or these Sabbats really resonate for you? So don't feel bad if you're like, I hate the color gold and green and I don't want to make a corn doll. Like, whatever. It's it's about, celebrating what's right for you and making this season special to you, or waiting until it's the season that you really do cherish and love and that you get excited for. So, but with that said, I'd like to walk you through a self-gratitude harvest for this particular time of year. So this is to acknowledge what you have achieved and or cultivated and sown within your life within these past few months. So how many of you find it easier to name and or focus on all the things that you're not getting done versus the things you are? Like, how many of you, can you relate to that? Maybe, yes, no?
I can relate.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of us, it's so much easier to focus on all the things we're not doing than all the things that we actually have done and that we are doing. So that's what we're going to be focusing today on what we're doing right now. Chelsea, since you volunteered that you have experienced this, can you describe what a day like that is like when you're in that state or space of only focusing on the things that you're not doing? What is that like?
So in that headspace, you don't see the things that you do accomplish or the impacts that you have or the things you can mark off your list, because all your focus, all your energy is going towards, I still haven't done these 3 things that have been on my list since this morning.
And how do you typically feel when you're in that space?
Not happy, really stressed.
Totally, absolutely. That's exactly right. All right, so today is all about equipping you with an easy tool to empower you to help yourself when you feel ready to shift out of that space that Chelsea described. So all of our emotions that we experience, especially the ones that pertain to ourselves, they're all valid and they all have many things to teach us. So this isn't about ignoring how we truly feel or ignoring the sequence of events that led to our unraveling or to us having a hard day as if they didn't exist. Instead, it's about giving yourself permission to feel what you're feeling and to ask yourself important questions like, what is this discomfort I'm experiencing trying to show and teach me right now? It's important for individuals to acknowledge questions like this when we get into these spaces, these headspaces where we're really zeroed in on self-blame, self-guilt, self-shame, lack of confidence, when we're in those headspaces where, gosh, I'm not doing enough, I can't get anything done, nothing's going right today. When we get in those spaces, there's some genuine medicine and gifts to be harvested during that particular time. So before we shift our state, we don't want to ignore the state we're actually in. We're in that state and space for a reason. So do ask yourself some questions. Lean into that discomfort that you're experiencing in those moments and just try to glean some information there. Try to pull out some wisdom pertaining to your experience. And when you are ready to shift your mentality and your emotional state to a more positive one, then you can utilize the steps that we're going to learn here today. But it is important to acknowledge where you are and to not discount it, because every emotional space that we succumb to has something to show us and has something to teach us that will make us better and will make us more wise. We're more capable. Okay. All right. So for a self-gratitude harvest, when you're ready to shift your mental state and you're ready to get out of that space, you've gleaned a little wisdom, you got a little insight as to why you were so focused in on all the negative things that you weren't getting done and were not doing. We're going to instead, and also, we're going to make a list, and I'm going to have you make a list right now. And I'm going to get a little notepad so that I can do this too. I'm going to have you make a list of a minimum of 6 things 6 things that you have done or needed to get done these last few months. And the more things you can list, the better. Now, this could be things like things that you did to work towards some of your goals. If that's the case, what steps did you take towards that particular goal? It could be things like getting your laundry done, cleaning your house, paying bills, getting your oil changed, getting car repairs, showing up for a friend, an evening of self-care, taking care of your pets and or your garden, things that really needed your attention, resisting the urge to make a bad choice. Anything like those things, or something much better, make a list of at least 6 things that you have done in these last few months. Okay? And if it feels impossible to come up to name things that you have done without naming things you didn't get done, that's fine, provided that you have to name at least 3 things you did do for every 1 thing you did. That's the compromise. Go ahead and make your list, acknowledging all the things you have done. Okay. Now, see if you can recall what obstacles presented themselves when embarking on your individual endeavors. And or what did it finally take for you to be successful in taking action and or achieving that specific action? Was there a tipping point that made you act? Was there a triggering moment? Did you experience a feeling? Did you experience a need? Like, oh my God, I don't have any more clean shirts. I have to do laundry. There's no way around this. Was there a specific desire that led you to finally taking action and to achieving something you really needed to do or wanted to do? So take a moment and see if you can identify what led you to finally take a successful step towards something you needed to do. Okay. So, Chelsea, if you are comfortable, and I'll reciprocate, would you mind sharing what were the types of things that led you to actually take
So I had moments of clarity about why those things were my goals, why I wanted to accomplish those things. And I had to overcome some misconceptions about what it would take to achieve them.
Yeah. Knowing your why and overcoming limiting beliefs.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly.
totally. Any others? Those are great.
They really all fit into there. The other one was I was really unhappy. And so in order to find that joy and fulfillment, things had to change.
Mhm.
So it was also realizing that as well.
Yeah, totally. Things for me that have allowed me to get things done that needed to, or things I wanted to get done, was apparently I work really well under pressure. That when the window is closing in on me, having less and less time to do it, then I'll finally get it done. Like, I'll get it done in time, but it's almost like I need that pressure of that closing window to act. Okay. But that's the truth for me. I do get a lot done when the window is very narrow. Self-care is also big for me in terms of being able to get things done. And I typically find that's true because I'm not able to achieve things or be my best self with my cup is my tank is super empty. So I find that if I actually step away from the things I need to do and go for a nature walk or go do some type of self-care that's really nourishing and beneficial for myself, then I come back and I'm refreshed. I have gas in the tank or my cup is full and I'm able to actually get stuff done.
Yeah.
I wrote having no more clean yoga pants.
I'm guessing laundry was on your list of accomplishments.
Yes, laundry was on my list. And it's usually when I run out of yoga pants. So I'm like, oh, time. I gotta do another load. Taking a leap of faith was also on my list. There's lots of goals that or like limiting beliefs, like you said, previous belief systems that I am actively working to outgrow and or overcome. And for me, in some ways, with some beliefs, it's like the only way I can move through it or move past it is to make these leaps of faith, blind leaps, and just trust that something or someone will catch me. And so in some instances with the things that I have successfully done over the last few months have required me kind of leaping into the unknown and just being like, let's do this. I don't know what's
Trusting
going to
the
happen.
process. Yeah.
Yeah. Cleaning my house was on my list, and that was easy for me to do because I had guests coming, so that made that one easy. And kind of goes hand in hand with the closing window.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how sometimes you might not consider helping friends or being a support for friends as getting things done, because doing that took away time for you to do other things that you actually had on your mind. But to be able to show up for somebody in your life, especially someone you care about, when they are truly in a time of need, is a really awesome thing to do. It's a really awesome thing to do. So yeah, it's worth putting on your list. that falls true for you. And I can't even read my last one. I don't even know what that says. So we're not even going to talk about it. It's like, what happened to me? Did I like sneeze when I was writing? Like, it's just like, oh, chicken scratch. Okay. Moving on. All right. Okay. So next, you're going to do, what did it cost you? What does it cost you when you don't acknowledge all the ways that you are showing up in your own life? What does it cost you to do that? I want you to write it down and then share.
Can you repeat that? It's what does it cost you when what?
Yeah, so what does it cost you when you don't acknowledge all the ways you are showing up in your own life?
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. What you got, girl?
All right, so I wrote that it can cost you your joy, your happiness, your peace of mind and fulfillment, but also it can cost you time and money and prevent you from achieving your larger overarching goals.
That has been your experience of when you're not doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Yep. Yep, I'm in the same boat. For me, it's ironic, but it actually causes me to be in such a state that I get even less and less done. So, like, if that's your goal, is to get things done, it's not the place to be in.
Yeah, it's like a paralysis almost where you, I don't know, I can't explain it, but you just feel like, what's the point?
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. So if you were to make acknowledging all the ways you are showing up in your life a new and positive habit for yourself, what might that look like? Would that be a sticky note that's like in several places of the house that says self-gratitude harvest? Where am I at today? Like, or if the word self-gratitude harvest doesn't actually resonate for you and it's some other aspect of this exercise that does, maybe use that as a cue of like, how would you create acknowledging all the ways you are showing up in your life as a new type of habit? What might that look like for you? Things to think about is, how could you set yourself up in a more empowering way so the next time you feel bombarded with all the things you're not doing, that you actually feel equipped in that moment instead of feeling helpless in that moment to be able to create some positive change.
So I think it's important for me personally to have a set of routines and tasks so that, I mean, it sounds silly, but to wake up, to brush my teeth and feed the fish before I even leave the bedroom. So if I, even if I go through half my day and I feel like I haven't done anything, when I walk in there and I see that his light is on and he's been fed, I know that I still accomplished my goal, which was to do that routine in the morning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's amazing how the little things can help us achieve the bigger things. It's like a snowball. It just keeps building and building upon itself. I forget which Fortune 500 dude was talking about his key to success, and he gave this really great speech on making your bed every morning. And he's just saying it's this simple little thing, but they're like, "What's your key to success?" And he's like, "I make my bed every morning." And he's talking about how if you can make your bed every morning, every morning you have this habit of getting one thing done, you're proving to yourself that you can get other things done too. And so it's like, that's the example you gave of brushing your teeth and feeding your fish before you leave the bedroom is a perfect example of how you can further cultivate this. It is important to come up with a way to identify, when you are in the headspace of I'm not getting anything done and I'm not doing all my things. It's important to come up with a certain identifiable marker for you to recognize that that's the headspace you're in. And then to have a plan for how you yourself, in your own unique way, shift into your active headspace. So anytime you feel that negative indicator of I'm not getting anything done, nothing's going my way, nothing's working out, you can say, uh-oh, I'm in that headspace. And again, we do want to give a little acknowledgement. We do want to shine a little light on why we are in that headspace to begin with. We don't want to ignore it. So maybe starting with some questions, leaning into the discomfort of that headspace you're in, find out a little bit more. And then what's your action plan? Like, what's the next thing that you're going to do to move forward? And doing something that's good for you, like self-care or relocating yourself from the space can give you a fresh perspective. Whatever it is, make a note for yourself to try to figure out what your two things are, how to identify you're in that space, and what you're going to do next when you get in that space. And then make a note for yourself about how having those two things, how they would impact your life, or how would impact your life to have a new habit of acknowledging all the ways you're showing up in your life. How would that impact you to have that as a new habit?
I definitely feel like I would spend a lot less time, a lot less wasted time and energy, a lot less. Yeah.
Yeah. And time is so precious. I don't know about you, but I'm a snob about my time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. Usually if I'm stressing about something, it has to do with time. I don't know.
Yeah. I think one of the ways I recognize when I feel like I'm not accomplishing things is I feel frustrated, but I don't really know why I'm frustrated. I just feel like a base level of frustration. And you said relocating yourself. I usually go sit outside in the sunlight, soak up some vitamin D for about 5 minutes to, boost my mood.
Yeah.
And just have like a moment of reflection, and without even, I mean, I've never gone through, why am I feeling this way? It was just like, okay, let's go do something else for a little bit. So I guess I was in a way like brushing the surface of what you've talked about, but not really getting into it, which I think would be really helpful.
Yeah, we're not culturally, we are not taught to lean into our discomfort. We're taught to put a lid on it, or to snuff it out, or to ignore it, or just move on. Yeah, that's unhealthy. Don't do any of that. Go do this instead. Like, yeah, it's not something we're taught to do. But for all all the things that we don't tend to in our lives, they don't go anywhere. They
Right.
fester, and they sometimes repopulate and create more yucky little gremlins inside. So yeah, like having the courage and the willingness to lean into our conversations and approach our discomforts from a space of curiosity. To be very curious. Be like, this is interesting. What's really happening here? Like, what is this really about? Who's actually narrating this story right now? What is this? Yeah, all good things. I'm looking at the time and I'm like totally blown away, because normally it takes us like a full 2 hours to do a Sabbath celebration, and we're done. I was like, that's it. Harvest, self-gratitude harvested. Good job. Yeah, I guess it was because it was just me and Katie today, and we didn't have other speakers. But wow, yeah, we're just like, enjoy your day.
I will. Thank you.
You may now go and enjoy your day. Yeah, so that wraps up our Lughnasadh share for the day and self-gratitude harvest. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for all who tune in on our YouTube channel. We will see you for our next Sabbath celebration. Please find us on Facebook at Urban Oracle. That's HERB, like the word herb or herb, depending on where you're from, apostrophe N, and then the word Oracle. Urban Oracle, we're very easy to find on YouTube and on Facebook. Nothing cryptic about our page names. It's just Urban Oracle. But if you find us on Facebook and follow us, then that's where you will be the first to be notified of when our next Sabbath celebration is. So that's the place to follow us for these particular online Zoom classes, and they're always free. So yeah, anyway, we hope to connect with you, hope to see you soon, and have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye.